Our banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use all of our tools as needed to keep it safe and sound.
There was a run on the bank.
Hi, I'm Nat, and today I want to talk about the third biggest banking collapse in U.S. history. This is coming a month after the second biggest banking collapse in U.S. history, which happened to Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. And while they kept saying that there was nothing to worry about and that those were isolated issues, well, this is what happened on Monday. A deal was announced on Monday, might I add very early in the morning, curiously enough, that allows for an orderly failure of First Republic. Under the terms, JP Morgan Chase & Co. will pay $10.6 billion to the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corp., FDIC, which took the FRC into receivership for most of the failed bank's assets. So this means that one of the U.S.'s biggest banks, First Republic, was essentially allowed to collapse and then be rescued by JP Morgan Chase under the direction of the U.S. government. And again, they keep saying that there's nothing to worry about, that this is an isolated issue and that everybody will be protected. And also on Monday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen came out to say that the U.S. might default on its debt as early as June 1st. And this would essentially signify the collapse of the entire financial system and the entire basis of the United States economy. And it is quite worrying. And in January, she sent a letter to Congress while Republicans and Democrats were fighting over raising the debt ceiling, with Republicans saying no and Democrats saying we need to. And now she's calling back to that letter saying, in my January 13 letter, I noted that it was unlikely that cash and extraordinary measures would be exhausted before early June. After reviewing recent federal tax receipts, our best estimate is that we will be unable to continue to satisfy all of the government's obligations by early June, and potentially as early as June 1st if Congress does not raise or suspend the debt limit before that time. This estimate is based on currently available data, as federal receipts and outlays are inherently variable, and the actual date that Treasury exhausts extraordinary measures could be a number of weeks later than these estimates. And while Democrats kept insisting that they should just raise the debt ceiling, on Wednesday, a bill was just narrowly passed. It's called the Limit Save Grow Act of 2023, which would suspend the debt ceiling through March 31st, 2024, or until an increase in debt of $1.5 trillion, whichever comes first, in exchange for a host of spending cuts. Again, even now, some experts keep insisting that there's nothing to worry about and that there is no big economic crisis looming on the forefront, and that we shouldn't really worry about it. I mean, this is what Biden decided to give as remarks about what just happened on Monday to First Republic Bank.
I'm pleased to say that the regulators have taken action to facilitate the sale of First Republic Bank and ensure that all depositors are protected and the taxpayers are not on the hook.
Except, I mean, they kind of are, because that money is coming from them, just in a very subtle way that most people don't realize.
These actions are going to make sure that the banking system is safe and sound, and that includes protecting small businesses across the country who need to make payroll for workers and their small businesses. And so let me be very clear. While depositors are being protected, shareholders are losing their investments. And critically, taxpayers are not the ones that are on the hook, as I said earlier. Now, going forward, I've called on Congress to give regulators the tools to hold bank executives accountable, and I've called on regulators to strengthen regulations and supervision of large and regional banks. And folks, we have to make sure that we're not back in this position again. And I think we're well on our way to be able to make that assurance.
Well, we have to focus on some of the words Biden is saying. Safe, secure, sound. And this is because the probable next step is to, now that we have seen that banks don't really work the way they're usually intended to, and that they keep collapsing for some reason, not just here, but in Europe as well, well, this would be a great time to transfer a lot of people's money and a lot of their bank accounts to a more centralized, maybe digital system that is more safe and secure than just a regular bank, where the regulators are actually able to manage those funds a bit better. Maybe even track them and make sure that this money is going to where it's supposed to go. Well, yes, this is a great excuse for everyone to start implementing central banking digital currency, which is a plan that the World Economic Forum has had for years now. And not just in this from 2016, but since then, they've kept coming up with more consortiums and meetings and white papers that outline very clearly what the plans are to start moving to a central bank digital currency in not just the United States, but every single country. Maybe one day they'll all be consolidated into one, where whatever money you have in one place ends up being the same in the other, and ends up being tracked by maybe the exact same non-governmental organizations that help build this new digital identity system. So given that these collapses are coming so close to each other, but they keep saying that there's nothing to worry about and there's no financial crisis looming, well, maybe, and I think swiftly, they'll start changing to saying that any bank could collapse next, and maybe we should, instead of bailing them out, start transitioning them to a central bank digital currency where we can ensure that all the people that have their money in those banks are now even more safe and secure, and are now controlled by a centralized system that is traceable and where your assets cannot be lost so easily. They'll make it sound very good, but if they offer this to you, I think about it twice, because as we all know, having a digital ID and digital identity means that whoever controls it can see anything and everything you're doing, and by extent can control you even further. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.